the Smithsonian, of which I'm sure we're familiar. 2 years ago had their 40th anniversary. They have a Smithsonian magazine, so for their 40th anniversary, the cover story was the 40 most significant changes we will see in the next 40 years. Number one on the Smithsonian's list of changes we will see is sophisticated buildings will be made of earth. It's a no-brainer. You know, it's the only material we have enough of, and it has the lowest embodied energy of any building material. So it's plentiful, it's cheap, and it can be done so that it's not environmentally damaging at all. So that's kind of my. It's about health. It's about efficiency. It's about sustainability. It's about low embodied energy. It's about thermal mass, warm in the winter, cool in the summer. Fireproof, soundproof, bugproof, and bulletproof. If you use lime as a stabilizer and lime plaster, lime has a pH of 12.4. Mold can't grow there. It's impossible. So you're mold-proof. There's a lot of features about this product that no other product has. I think the most important one is breathability. The ability for the wall to absorb and release water vapor automatically without fans, wires, or switches. This is the buffering effect, even in a humid climate. You know, we were just talking, and you missed this, but it works very best if it's warm in the day and cool at night. That's, you know, then our summers in Colorado, all I did was open the windows at night and shut the windows in the day, and the house was always perfect. There's some slides in here that will demonstrate some experiments that have been done with that sort of thing. Sustainability, the United Nations definition from 1986, and still I think is a succinct and accurate description as we can put it there. Ancient adobes, this is just proof they've been around for a long time. Upper left is Shabam in Yemen, I don't know, 1,000 years or something, I'm not sure of the age of that one. On the right is the Djenné Mosque in Mali, West Africa. Significant because it's the largest by mass adobe building in the world. And it's unstabilized blocks and unstabilized plaster. The Muslims have a big party every year. It comes from all over Africa, and they replaster the building. I thought that those vigas that were sticking out were vigas, but in fact they're scaffolding. And I saw a picture of them later plastering it, and I thought, well, they put the planks up there on the, no planks. They're just standing there on the logs that are rubbing the wall with wood. Lower left, Taos Pueblos. I used to live in Taos. The oldest continually occupied buildings in North America. Mud blocks. Contemporary houses, I was a general contractor in Colorado, and these were some of the houses that we built. I show this not to bang my chest about building houses, but to demonstrate that earth blocks are a multimedia. People think of adobe as the upper left, you know, Santa Fe style parapet walls, flat roof. It's just a wall system. You can build anything you want with it. You can build circles, you can build a Victorian. Obviously we have a castle on the upper right, an octagon on the lower right, and then on the lower left is earth block 1. That was the first house I built and lived in for 18 years. These are interiors of the same buildings. We use natural plasters, clay and lime. Again, breathability is our deal. We want to absorb and release water vapor. If you put paint and cement on something, it's over. So all of these plasters are clay or lime or clay-lime combinations. We typically like to do lime on the outside and clay on the inside. Is our best weather protection, and yet breathable on the outside and purely breathable on the inside with just clay on it. This is a slide originally from Hassan Fathi, and then it was picked up by Gernot Menke, a German professor, engineer that's written probably the best manuals on earth building. And then he had it in his book, and now I've lifted it out of his book. The building on the left is earthen walls and earthen roof. The building on the right is concrete walls and a concrete roof. These are two buildings in Cairo, Egypt, over a 24-hour period. The band across the middle is the human comfort zone. That's where you're not too hot, not too cold. The solid line that's the same on both graphs is the exterior temperature over that 24-hour period. The dotted line is the interior temperature on the left in the earthen building, and on the right, a concrete building. There's something to be said for breathability. So this is a thermal mass, and what have you. It's a pretty impressive slide, I think. This is about energy use. You think of factories and their smokestacks pouring smoke into the atmosphere, or cars in a traffic jam puking their exhaust into the atmosphere. What about CO2? Actually, if you look at these graphs, it's all about, well, it's not all about, but it's mostly about buildings. If we want to get after the energy crisis, we have to get after the architects, the developers, the engineers, and the builders, and build smarter buildings. So if we want to really do anything about the amount of energy that we are consuming. I don't know if you can read those or not. Is it clear enough to read? It's hard for me.
That's a little better right there.
Yeah, that's good.
Anyway, in short, the yellow is buildings. And transportation is the gray. Obviously, we don't have very many electric cars. The upper right. And industry is the blue-green. So, buildings. They melt, don't they? No, they don't. They don't melt if we stabilize them. We either use cement or lime as a stabilizer. We prefer to use lime. It's a better environmental story, and there's a slide about that later. This particular block was made in Baja California Sur, and the stabilization was 5% lime by weight, and that's it, pulled out of a bucket of water after 1 year. This was our 1-year test. And it was like new. So, no, they don't melt. You have to have a high clay content to use lime as a stabilizer. If you don't have a high clay content, then you need to use cement.
Have you used fly ash in any of the stabilizing?
We can try that. I haven't tried it. It takes a special kind of fly ash. F and C, and one works and the other doesn't. Do the scrubbers. Maybe you know more about that than I do.
I don't.
There's two different kinds of fly ash. C works, F doesn't. Okay, C has to have the scrubbers.
F is the clean anthracite coal. We don't see it much more anymore,
Right,
because
yeah.
it's all our chimneys are cleaned up. The C value is the lignite coal we used to strip mine here in Texas. That's getting more and more rare, but that has a lot more calcium, free calcium available.
Okay. We did check into it at one point for a project we were doing in Southern California, and there's also a cost factor. Hey, let's use fly ash, it's a waste product. But if we have to truck it or train it from 200 miles away, and it drives up the cost of the block 10 cents, then is it really worth it? We did some blocks on that job using 50-50 fly ash and cement, and they came out fine. Again, I think it would be maybe an economic question. This was taken in Oaxaca, and Eta Mexicana had an earth block project down there. On the bottom of the valley, and they were building houses. You can see a stack of blocks on the left. And people from the mountain came down and said, "We want the blocks too." And they said, "Well, we can't get the machine up there." I said, "No problem." So, Mexican ingenuity. Hurricanes. This is in Baja California Sur. We made 2 million lime stabilized blocks for that project. They built, at the time I left, they had built about 400 houses. But this picture is, my partner Jeff and I were in Mexico City when Hurricane John hit the peninsula. And that's the blowing palm tree and the waves you see behind him with Hurricane John. And there were about a dozen buildings in this state at the time with the earth block panels stacked up, but without the castillos poured. The reinforcement system there, those columns had vertical rebar in it. You can see them sticking out the top. And then the whole thing got poured. The bond beam and the castillos and everything got tied together with, a frame of steel reinforced concrete. But they hadn't been poured yet. So we had these 10 foot by 8 foot or whatever they were, 12 foot by 8 foot freestanding panels of earth blocks. And Hurricane John hit. Jeff and I were in Mexico City. We were like, "Oh God, I wonder what's happening," 90-mile-an-hour winds and 40 inches of rain, 3 days. And that picture was taken 3 days after the earthquake, or after the hurricane. And the walls just stood there and went, is that the best you can do? And they weren't reinforced yet. The CMU walls that were in the same state blew over, of course. We focus on the triple bottom line, which is a pretty common thing, sustainable line, economic, environmental, and social sustainability. If you're not doing all three, you're not doing it. We provide programs where we teach people to build with earth blocks, create a job for them, they can build their own houses, and it's a win-win-win. Everybody wins. It's environmentally sustainable, economically sustainable, and it's good for the society. These pictures were all taken in Chiapas, I think. Note, these are Italy Mexicana pictures from probably 15 years ago, and note the gender of the crew, because at that time, all the guys were up here. This is in Zambia. We use an Orem press, a hand press, on the upper left. Again, local economic sustainability. On the lower left is our crew in Zambia, on the upper right is our crew in Baja. All local guys learning how to do it and build houses. The lower right is my friend in Lusaka, Zambia. He had a hydroform machine, and we went to see him running it one day, and he said, I can't make blocks today. I said, why not, Abraham? And he said, I don't have any cement. I said, you ever tried lime? I went, lime? Did that work? And we ran back to our job site, got a couple of bags of lime, brought him back, and he was back in business, big smile on his face. Different machinery, Orem press on the left, hand press from India, the best one in the world for sure. We have one here in Texas. On the upper right is the Italy Mexicana, made in Mexico City, a fabulous machine. That's on my land in San Miguel de New Mexico. The lower right is the Italy machine popping out 2 holy blocks. That was in Torreon, Mexico.
And in that particular case, what's the purpose of the holes?
Reinforcement.
You're in
Yeah,
fill them.
we use an Italy machine in Haiti because we're obviously in a very high seismic zone, and we run vertical rebar. We don't want the cement castillos. We don't want the containment system because 2 reasons. One, you have a cold joint.
Sure.
Dissimilar materials come together, going to move at different speeds. That's, we're builders. That's, you don't want to do that. You got to plaster over 2 different mediums. Mm-hmm. You have a thermal break through the concrete. You built this perfectly wonderful thermal wall of earth, and now you got this chunk of pure concrete, which is hot and cold pretty fast compared to the dirt. So it's not good. So we'd rather, if we need to run vertical reinforcement, we'd rather use the holy blocks and run the vertical reinforcement through the holes. And the Italy also makes a U block, and we use that as a horizontal every 4 courses, and then we have rebar running there. But that way, if you had X-ray vision, you'd see this rebar cage
Sure.
inside the wall, but it's still all earth on the inside and outside.
So you're rebarring, but you're not then filling those with grout, or
We're not what?
filling them with grout, or
Yeah, no, we
rebar.
film it.
Okay.
They gotta film it grout.
Yeah, I was gonna say that didn't sound.
We film the cement grout, and one of my seismic engineers in California doesn't like the holies because he said the modulus of rupture is going to be less. It's not as strong a block. And I go, but Fred, what if we, only use the holies where we're putting the rebar, and we're filling those holes with cement grout,
Sure.
and we use solids everywhere else? And he said, well, that'd be fine. That'd be great. And that's what we're doing in Haiti, based on his advice. I have to figure out before each building, okay, how many holies, how many solids, how many U blocks do we need? Because of course they're not making 10 more than they need.
And are you mortaring between each layer? Or are you stacked? Are they free stacked?
We never dry stack, never.
Okay.
I'm adamant. Again, this is like, but it's common sense, right?
Sure.
The wall sticks together. You want to stick your blocks together, and I don't even care if they're tongue and groove and all that kind of stuff. There's some good tongue and groove blocks. I've worked with dozens of machine manufacturers and helped design some of these things, so I get it, And there's some of the tongue and groove blocks where they have left room where you can run a roll of slurry and stick them together, and that's a good thing. Some of them, they love to tell you that you can dry stack them, and I mean, if you see any tests of a mortared wall and a dry stack wall, you're like, well, why would you do that?
Right.
Because it's fast and cheap. That's not the point. The point is high quality, thermal mass, you know, we want this to work. People ask me how long it'll last, I say that I guarantee the building for the first 1,000 years. You know, come get me in 900 if I'm wrong. It's fireproof, soundproof, bug-proof, and bulletproof, I mean, and hurricane-proof, you know. It's,
And what kind of mortar is used?
we're using a stabilized earth mortar. It's similar material to what the blocks are made. In fact, it's the same 3 ingredients, but I increased the sand and the Portland for the mortar because this doesn't have the benefit of the compression that the block gets. I've got 3 of the blocks over here in the corner if you want to see them. We make 3 different sizes, the 2x6, 7x14, and 10x14. These Holeys are from, and those are all from AECT machinery made in San Antonio. These Holeys are made by Itama Hikana in Mexico City. For machinery, it's an AECT on the top. It's the little one, the 2000, we got one of those. On the left is the 3500, the big machine. We ran 3 of them at a time in Baja. We could make 9,000 blocks a day. Woohoo! We were the biggest block plant in the world at the time. This is in San Miguel, homes for the poor, typically single mothers. The little red shack on the upper left is where she lived with her 11 children. And on the lower left is it's an organization called Casita Linda, and it's sort of like Habitat. It's a one-a-month giveaway kind of thing, but they were using our blocks for a while. This is a home in Dolores Hidalgo where we got to do everything we wanted. It's earth block walls, earth block vaults and domes, earth and floor, rainwater catchment, gray water harvesting, composting toilets, the works. We got to do it all, you know. It's a wonderful house. I was very happy.
What's the distinction between the color tones in terms of material?
There were 2 different kinds of, 2 different machines. The more grayish blocks were made by the Itama Hikana, and the redder blocks was a different clay that we used for the trim bricks and the walls and stuff.
So it was an aesthetic choice.
Yeah.
It wasn't really a structural choice, I think.
No. Well, it was also a scientific experiment. You know, do they both work? Yeah. Great. Okay. Yeah. We're always experimenting. You know. I saw a great sign over an engineer's lab at OU and said, if we knew what we were doing, we wouldn't call it research. This is Zambia, a test house that we built, white lime plaster on the outside. White lime plaster reflects exponentially more heat and light than white paint because it's a refractory. It's these little tiny particles of sand and lime. And it reflects the heat and light. So it's a step towards passive cooling, which here in Texas is our main feature. You know, passive cooling. We want the tenant to spend the absolute minimum over the course of the life of the building for heating and cooling. And here's cold climate. Crow Nation, Montana. The University of Colorado sponsored this. Actually, the BIA sponsored it, but they ran the funding through CU. And I had worked for CU off and on a couple of times. So there I am just freezing on the lower left of the first one from the left. We made blocks in November. It was cold in Montana. But the Indians complained a couple of years later. I saw Bernard Amadei, a friend of mine, the founder of EWB, at a conference. And I said, so what happened in Montana? He said, oh, Jim, the Indians are complaining. What's the matter? He said, they called up last winter and said, it's too warm. The engineer said, open the window.
So we'll back to it for a second. So before I'd ask the question about to insulate that mass.
Yes, this was the ultimate wall. So, you know, at least in my estimation, the ultimate wall. It's a cavity wall so that you can put healthy insulation, breathable insulation on the inside. If you have to put, you know, a lot of the houses we did in Colorado, we put rigid insulation on the outside. Because you get, you know, thermal mass of the flywheel doesn't work if the high is 5 and the low is minus 30. You know, the wall is going to get cold. So you need insulation in that climate. And so the easy way was rigid insulation on the outside of the thermal mass because you want the thermal mass to still work for you inside. It's still absorbing and releasing heat and water vapor, and it's still working for you. It's just not the purest all the way through the wall thing. So we insulate the outside, but you can, whenever I could convince the client to pay a little extra for the double wall, we would do it because it's vastly superior, because you have, instead of a 14-inch solid wall, we would do a 10-inch solid wall was our structural wall, and that was the thermal mass. And then we'd have a 3-inch gap, okay? 3 inches was basically because you needed 3 inches to get your hand down there while you were working, because you're putting the courses up at the same time. And we put a 7-inch wall on the outside. We've subsequently made a new chamber where we can put a 4-inch wall on the outside, so it's really just a shade wall, but it's still earth. And then you can fill that cavity with vermiculite or perlite or pumice or, some natural breathable insulation. And then you've still got a completely breathable wall. And the other advantage of that is with the cavity, you've got a great place to work all your plumbing and electrical. That becomes a lot easier. And with the cavity, you've still got earth on both sides of the wall. So you can do your lime plaster and earth plaster and keep your wall, the best it can be. That's our goal. I'm working with Mike right now. I don't know if this is the right time to mention this. We want to do earthen roofs too. 65 to 80% of your heat loss and gains through the roof. So it'd be nice to get Mother Nature working for us up there too, as opposed to all styrofoam. This is Baja California Sewer. I was there for 3 years. 2 million lime stabilized blocks. These are lime stabilized block buildings with lime plaster. I left and they switched to styrofoam and cement. Too bad. But it was fun while we were there. There's the plant where we could make 9,000 blocks a day. And we went for 3 years. We could make 9,000 blocks a day. We did not make 9,000 blocks a day because we had 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 machines. So somebody was always wrenching on one of them, Here's the hand press. This is in Chiapas, the Oroville hand press, the best one in the world for sure. If you buy all the molds he makes, you can make 75 different blocks. It's hard to work. Laboratory testing, obviously we're in the United States, we want to do all the things we need to do. Fortunately, we're in Austin and San Antonio, and we have labs that we can go to and get the real results. We just had these blocks tested, the ones that are in the corner, because we're building a house in Fredericksburg right now, at PSI in San Antonio, and they were, the 6x12s were 1,960, and the 10x14 was 2,560 PSI. This is like concrete. Concrete's 3,000, The code, the New Mexico code is 300. That's ridiculously low. I helped write that code and I fought that ridiculous number. The Mexico code is better. It's 50 kilograms per square centimeter, which is 711 PSI. And that's more realistic for what a compressed earth block should be. Well, we were just at 2,500. So, I'm not concerned about the structural integrity of our building unit, all right? And I'm happy to submit them to any fire or water test you'd like. Story poles, we put up angle iron on the corners just to make things go faster. As long as your story pole is plumb and you pull the string straight, your wall is straight and plumb. This is a lot less forming than rammed earth. Rammed earth is a beautiful system that I'm not going to knock, and I love the walls. They're 2 feet thick, they're beautiful, but man, it's a lot of forms, and we use 4 pieces of angle iron and a string. Over and over and over, it's a more sustainable building technique. I can explain to you how that all works if you want, but I know we need to move on here. Bond beams, a critical aspect of any masonry construction, whether it doesn't matter what kind of masonry construction. You put on bond beams, and we use steel reinforced concrete bond beams. The code allows for wooden bond beams, and that can be done. It's cheaper and it's faster. My feeling about it is, as a purist, I'm building an earthen building that's going to last 1,000 years, and I'm putting a temporary product in it. You know, wood. The bugs are going to eat it, or it's going to rot, or it's going to, you know, it's going to catch fire. So it's this temporary product. So we're trying to make our, you know, part of the sustainability, the environmental quotient, or whatever you want to use. One of the factors in there was, well, how long does it last? You know, wow, this is real cheap to make, but you know, it's only good for 6 weeks. You know, well, you know, how long does your product last? How long is it useful for its intended purpose, which is to house people? And we win. Here's earthen roofs that we're promoting. That's Bernard Amadei on the left, the founder of Engineers Without Borders, CU, engineering professor, French guy. I don't know if you know him or know about him. He's a really good guy. And he's an earth block fan. He came to one of our workshops in Mexico, and that's him laying blocks. He said, my father and grandfather would be proud. They were French masons. These are plaster samples. We use natural plaster on the inside. In the buckets on the upper right there are chopped straw and baba de nopal, cactus juice, a magical ingredient that we always use in our clay plasters and lime plasters.
In terms of replastering strategy, in terms of, you know, maintaining the wall over time, what would be your expectation?
Well, the clay plaster is dentable. Certainly. It's the same color all the way through. So if you can live with the dent, you know, it's not like chipping the white paint off a dark piece of wood.
Sure.
You know what I mean? There's that advantage. It's easily patched. We always leave a little bag of the dry mix, you know, for the owner, and a little water, and rub it on, you know. Depends on the finish that you used, whether it was a hard trowel Venetian or the easy sponge float. You know, they all look good, but it's unbelievably easy to fix. Much easier than drywall.
But in terms of, you know, is the plaster, do you have to generally plan on the plaster being refinished every decade, or?
Not necessarily, no. I mean, if you've got, you know, 6 little kids, you know, maybe every year.
How about 70?
70 little kids?
Yeah, so the building that we're talking about here is a learning center. We're going to have 70 kids in there on a daily basis.
Well, then what I would suggest there would be a wainscoting of something, you know, kid-proof, and still get the benefit of the breathable clay, you know, from the wainscot up.
Is not a lime plaster more durable?
Lime plaster is definitely more durable. It's not as breathable. You know, we can put on a hard lime plaster that, you know, it's not cement. You know, America is determined that harder is better, and we disagree. We think that softer is better. More forgiving, more breathable, more movable, you know, in pretty much every way, whether it's from rubble-filled foundations to earth and masonry walls to softer plasters, it's better. I was sitting on my porch in San Antonio one evening looking across the street at the monstrous German masonry Lutheran church, you know. I'm going, wow. And I'm looking at the masonry and the perfection of it, and but also the hard lines, you know. Everything was 90 degrees straight. It was hard. I went, these architects are all men. You know, this is a man's building, you know. And then I thought of our buildings with soft clay plasters and rounded corners, and we're females. Oh, that's good. I like this idea, you know.
So then that was interior finish, and the exterior. What's the maintenance regime there as far as?
Little, you know, it's the product is unbeatable. I mean, I can give you the formula in 10 seconds. We do 2 coats, no wire, okay? We rough up the earth blocks, we make a base coat out of sifted clay of the same as the earth blocks. Lime, sand, chopped straw, and cactus juice. That's the base coat, okay? It's stabilized. The lime stabilizes. It's semi-stabilized. It's not cement, you know? And then the finish coat is lime, sand, cactus juice. That's it. That's all that's in it. When I went to Baja, when I first got to Baja, you know, Junipero Serra was the priest that built the 27 missions up the California coast. Loreto, Baja California Sur was number 1. Sonoma, where I once lived, was the last one in that row. But I got to Loreto, and they were starting to refinish the mission. And they said, "What? I heard there's this guy out of Loreto who knows something about lime." Well, that was me. I knew a little, you know. So they brought me this chunk of plaster that they were torn off the original mission. It's 450 years old, you know. And they were going to replace it because it was cracked, but it was still good, you know. And they said, "What is this?" And I went, "Well, I don't know for sure, but I'll smuggle it back to the States and take it to the lab and find out what it is." And I did. And it had 2 ingredients. It was 60% sand and 40% lime. It was 450 years old. So it depends on the quality of the lime, and it depends on the skill of the applicators, okay? But this is a long-term finish, you know. And this is the 3rd workshop. We had 56. So we thought, somebody wants to know about building with earth blocks. You know, and I love my crew in Haiti. I've worked with the same guys now since 2009, and I would take them anywhere. I tried to bring a couple of them here, but Haitians? No. There's the first 2 buildings. That's built the first building with the hand press from Oroville. It's the crew. Built the second building with Ita Mexicana. That's this building. I call this masonry orchestra because I'm so proud of this picture. There's each pair of mason and helpers, and they're around the wall, around the scaffolding. They're moving up in unison. The wall is perfect. It's like, this didn't happen overnight, I'll tell you that. This is building number 2, but they got there. You know, they know what they're doing, and they're doing it well, and they know why, and they care. They're enthusiastic about it. You know, it's a very rewarding thing to do. That was my roommate in Haiti. Texas, here's some Texas project. My first project in Texas, on the right there, was in Bastrop. And I went to give Judy the earth block dog and pony show on why you should do earth blocks, and I got about 10 minutes into it, and she said, "Jim, stop." She said, "Does it burn?" And I said, "No, it doesn't burn. You can't burn it." She said, "That's what I want." So that was my first house here in Texas.
And is that insulated mass as well?
No insulation, no. She's real happy.
Are you, for inserting windows, are you bucking out the frames, wood?
Yes.
Presumably?
We use 2x6 bucks.
Mm-hmm.
We could use 2x4s, except it'd be a little cheaper, but there aren't
Yeah.
any straight ones in the United States, so we can 2x6s to try to get something fairly flat. And we make boxes, and those stay in,
Yeah.
typically. And we just plaster, they disappear, the plaster around. But then that way you're putting in the standard American windows with fins. It's just like putting in a frame wall,
Right.
you know, fake, you know, goes in, screws in, with plaster over it, make it disappear. Now she put wood trim around all her windows, but that's not our typical technique. One of my cost savings comments about earth blocks is we fired the finish carpenter. You know, we don't have a lot of window trim or crown molding or that kind of stuff. It's all mud. You know, we do all our curves and arches and everything else with.
And what was the sort, for Bastrop, what was the sort, or I guess Ross Snyder?
The source of dirt?
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. We were she lives between Bastrop and Smithville. And just as you're leaving Bastrop, they were digging out this hill, or like put in a Walmart or something, you know. And so she calls me up and she says, Jim, there's this enormous pile of dirt right by the highway, you know, and I went, okay. So I drove down there, stuck my hands in and went, wow, this stuff's great. And they wanted to get rid of it. So we paid the trucker to haul it, but
Right.
it was good dirt and it was, 6-7 miles away.
And so what about the next Austin one?
The next house is in Austin, West Austin. I don't know if you know, going out 290 quite a ways. It's a monster. Those are all lime stabilized blocks, about 13,000 of them. And we just made the blocks for that one. We didn't build it, but I talked to the brother of the owner just a couple days ago. He said they're 2 weeks from turnkey. They've been at it for a couple of years. I mean, it's a real monster. But that dirt came from a pit on the east side of Austin. I can't remember the name. There's a whole bunch of them out there. You drive on the east side, you just go up down those dirt roads. It's just one gravel pit after another. And we like to go to gravel pits because they're after sand and gravel. And they frequently have these enormous hills of what they call overburden. And it's our dirt. It's the clay they don't want. It's like, yippee. So that's our first place to look if we don't take it from site. We can take it from the site, but there's drawbacks to that. Unless you're digging a basement or digging a pond or berming into a hill, where you're going to generate that material yourselves, it's going to cost you to get it out of there no matter what. And now you don't have to pay for taking it away because you can use it to build. That's great. But if you're not doing any of those things and you don't have a huge piece of land, you don't want to go out and spend the money on a backhoe to dig a big hole in your land that you don't want. And then you got to pay to screen it. And better off at the gravel pit where they have screeners and they deliver, we use everything they bring. It's not like they're bringing stuff that we then have to screen and take away the overburden from that. They're bringing pre-screened material. It's well worth it. It averages $20 to $25 a yard, screened and delivered for the dirt.
And how many yards how many blocks out of a yard?
Of the big ones, of the 10 by 14s, about 50.
And how many square feet is that building, roughly?
6,000.
So similar scale to what we'd be talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You said 13,000 blocks.
Yeah, that's right.
And divided by 50, probably 10, 1,300.
I have a calculator for when I do that. Not that I don't trust. I turned my phone off though. After it rang a couple times, I realized.
It's all right. It's all.
All right, we can. It's 50 blocks a ton, roughly. Okay, of the full size 10 by 14s. Okay, and let me tell you a couple of quick numbers that you can use in measuring square foot of wall space. We're not concerned with the floor space. We're concerned with the wall space. So measuring the square foot of wall space, if you use a 14-inch thick wall, it's 3.6 blocks per square foot.
Of wall.
Of wall. If you use a 10-inch wall, it's 2.6 blocks per square foot.
What size? Those are the bigger blocks.
Yeah, now let me show you real quickly. Here's the block, my hand, okay? And this is 14, and this is 10, okay? So when you're going this way for a 14-inch thick wall, the face you're looking at is 4 by 10. And that's why it takes 3.6. If you turn it this way, you have a 10-inch wall. Now you're looking at the long side. It takes 2.6. If you want to do a double wall, it's not twice as many blocks as the 14-inch thick wall. If you do a double wall, both your widths are going this way. So you're at 5.2 blocks per square foot for a double wall. And you can do a double wall out of 10s and 4s. So you're using the same amount of material as a 14-inch wall. Your foundation's 3 inches wider for the air gap. But that's, you're using the same amount of material and you're getting that cavity. I have a theory that I feel very confident about. You know, the cavity wall is wonderful for us in cold climates because we can insulate. The cavity wall is also wonderful for us in hot climates because we can vent the wall. We put air vents at the bottom, and we put a black pipe going out of the top. And as the screen wall or shadow wall, the 4-inch wall, always has the 10-inch wall in the shade, for starters, okay? We're shaded, bingo, step one. Now, the earth, the heat, the sun is gonna slowly move through that 4 inches of earth by convection. Conduction, by conduction, okay? Ultimately, it's gonna get through there, particularly in a hot climate where it stays hot, right? Instead of continuing through a solid 14-inch wall until it finally got there, which it could do in the summer in Texas, right? It hits this little air gap, which has vents at the bottom, black pipes at the top, which are in essence going like that, and it's pulling that air up and out, having some effect on the speed with which it can move into the next 10 inches.
You can also add a radiant barrier in the interior face, and because that exterior leaf is going to radiate heat later part of the day.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
So that particular transmission mode can be minimized by a radiant barrier.
Okay, is the radiant barrier breathable?
It's perforated.
Perforated? Really?
We talked about
That's
that.
the ticket.
We talked about that for the Adobe Museum. With
Right, that's right, that's right. One, is it sheets? I mean, the one with,
rolls, typically.
okay. You kind of have to
You
put
don't
the
get-
inside wall up first. Anyway, yeah, okay. So that one is about done. This is 2 weeks from done, is what I was told. And the owner's brother told me that she's just thrilled at the temperature in the earthen rooms, you know. It's significantly cooler than, and you know, it's not just cool, it's also controlling humidity. It absorbs water vapor, you know, so they're comfortable. And you know, I say this all the time when I'm obviously an earth block believer and I'm an earth block salesman. I mean, I make no doubts, no bones about it. That's what I do. And you can do these PowerPoints and show these graphs and talk about energy, and there's nothing like walking them in the door. I used to say in Colorado, if I could walk them in the door of my house and they sat in my living room for 2 hours and we talked about earth blocks. I don't mean to offend anybody like this because we're not in that situation, but they would build an earth block house or they were brain dead. And I didn't have very many people that walked back out the front door that didn't. You know, it was pretty rare. You feel it, and it's not something that you can do two-dimensionally. This one is in Blanco. This is a 4,000 square foot house to 12,000 blocks. Beautiful, beautiful house. He's real happy too. Real happy. That's it. That's Blanco again. Nearing farther along. Here's on the right, after those two monsters, on the right is the smallest building I've ever built. It's 200 square feet, and I think that 2 people could live there quite comfortably. Has a loft for sleeping, and a living room / office / dining room with against the back wall is a composting toilet and a little kitchen. It's got it all. And also, I think that this could be the wave of the future. I know the mayor of New York City is promoting 200 square foot units right now in the city because the people that live there can't afford anything more than that. You know? And on the left is a development in San Antonio on Eisenhower Road. It was 13 units, rental units. We made blocks only. It was not, well, I won't say too much about that project other than the major thing about it is that it was the first time multi-unit development of this size was made out of earth blocks inside the city limits of a major US city. That was the breakthrough there. I mean, they made us do fire tests, you know, which was very expensive. You know, you got to go down to the firehouse and build a wall, and then they have this control, and they put X number of degrees against it. It's dirt, you know, it doesn't burn. It didn't burn, but we had to pass the test anyway. This is the house in Welfare between Bernie and Comfort. This one has earthen walls, earthen floor. Those are low cambered barrel vaults you can see on the left. Earth walls, earth floors, earth roof, earth blaster, composting toilet, sort of. Rainwater catchment. It's a good one. We make ceramic water filters in Mexico. We'll skip that for now. And that's it.